Shrink the Nation is a podcast for thoughtful, informed adults, preferably with a pour in hand. The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the hosts and guests only, and do not reflect the views of any employers, institutions, licensing boards, government agencies, bourbon distilleries, or family members, especially our family members. They've asked us to be very clear about that. This show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical, psychiatric, legal, or professional advice. If you're in crisis, call a professional. If you're mad at something we said, we suggest journaling or emailing us with civility. We're here to challenge ideas, not diagnose strangers. We're clinicians, not your clinicians. And we have the bourbon to prove it. Let's go. Welcome back to Shrink the Nation on the Couch with America. Last time, Testo Rage Max had the comment section slapping on a rear naked choke. We tapped, we iced the ego, we hydrated with Kentucky's finest, and now we're back in the octagon for round two. Tonight, we're separating hormones from hype, anger from agency, and bro science from, actual science. No culture war, CrossFit routines, no pseudonymous lab bros selling you powdered dominance. We're going to talk testosterone, mood, aggression, and why your uncle's garage gym is not a randomized controlled trial. We'll own what we missed, sharpen what we got right, and yes, we'll answer the DMs that began with, actually, if you came for a brawl, you'll get footwork and counterpunches. If you came for clarity, you'll get clean jabs of clinical sense with a bourbon finish. Grab a glass, drop the hot takes, keep your hands up. I'm David, board-certified Trink, 20-plus in uniform, pouring something brown and honest. With me are the usual suspects, equally credentialed and only slightly less charming. This is Shrink the Nation, smart, provocative, clinically sharp, and reasonably sober for at least the first 5 minutes. Touch gloves, round starts now.
Hey, this is Rob. This evening I'm drinking Testo Rage Max. It's a new brand of energy drink. It's coming out soon. Shrink the Nation, you can thank us. I'm drinking the newest flavor, which is Bourbon Bull Sweat. It pairs nicely with meat cooked rare and the Second Amendment. My second favorite flavor, my top favorite flavor is gunpowder and grizzly urine. Buy them where you buy your fine energy drinks.
That sounds safe to say that I will not be challenging you for that drink. Since I'm at 19 years in psychiatry, I'm glad to be back on the show. Now, I am drinking my old faithful tin cup 14er.
Welcome back.
Still pretty damn good.
Welcome back, Mitt.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm bruised up from this past week. After our last episode dropped, I've been taking it.
As has become our pattern in the episode after the main episode, it's our apology tour. Our apologies today. I'm going to start with an apology to Sam Altman.
That's my job. I'm supposed to apologize to Sam because I'm the one who...
You do bad at it. I'm going to do a better apology. So right. I apologize to Sam if it was perceived that David was besmirching his manhood. Personally, I love ChatGPT. ChatGPT 5 is excellent. It is like talking to a PhD if that PhD was acquired at Subway University where the sandwich artists are made. So we're sorry, Sam, and keep up the good work.
I'm just proud of you for saying ChatGPT.
I know.
And not something else. So you've really grown up.
I have. I've got dyslexia.
No, I'm just proud of you.
GPT, GTP, whatever.
He'll say
GTP. Seems
GBT, GTP. He'll
right.
just mix up letters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's grandpa, not dyslexia.
So anyway, bottom line is, Sam, I'm on your side. I'm a fan, and I think you should advertise with us.
I think you just did. Next, I think we have to clarify. When we're talking about behavior, we didn't really get into the behaviors of Gen Z, 18 to 28-year-old males that were starting to lean towards the right, that are really getting into that bro culture, the extra masculine stuff. We didn't talk about the behaviors, but bad behavior is bad behavior. You can just call that out right now and say, if you're going to do things that are inappropriate, it's inappropriate. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. If you're going to be rage tweeting, yelling at people, getting mad at the world for things they don't know you, then that's just bad behavior and it's not all right.
If there was any implication that we were on the side of bad behavior, that was not in any shape or form the intent. The episode wasn't necessarily designed, or honestly, in 1 hour, there's just not enough room to hit on all the aspects, all the nuances of the topic. What I found interesting was that this shift is occurring among enough individuals, a significant portion of a certain subset of our population, And I thought it would be interesting to try to understand. And then it played into some psychodynamic topics about manliness and manhood and the transition. So if there was an implication that I was saying that bad behavior was well deserved, I didn't mean it that way. And certainly do not believe that. Bad behavior is unacceptable.
So can I ask, what were some comments that you guys want to address specifically? Sort of the concerns versus the topics you want to explore or clarify?
No pressure, David. Just pull those up.
Yeah, I'm trying to find some.
I know you are. I can see you furiously hunting and pecking. Well, while David is doing that, then I'm going to make a plug for our website. We do have a website, shrinkthenation.com. On that website, there is the ability to join our newsletter now, and there will be, by the time that this airs, the opportunity to do an anonymous email, anonymous message to us, and you can send in your complaints, your concerns, your questions, your ideas for future episodes, all those things, and you can do it without us necessarily having your email or your name. Although there is the opportunity to include your name and your email. In that event, we'll give you a shout out. We'll say, hey, this great question came from, or this great complaint came from, but you do have the option to mark that you do not want to be identified. And we would love that engagement. Our shows are 1 hour long and the topics are really complex. So we're going to miss things and we want folks to point that out.
Yeah, we absolutely love being told what we missed.
Absolutely.
Feel free to point it out.
All right, I'll give you a comment. If this subset of men are angry that women have control over their lives, it's not hard to connect the dots about why most women would not want to engage with these men.
And I would agree, this is maybe a format problem, that we weren't clear with our intent. That is a downstream consequence of this and is probably what's contributing to the fact that 65% of this population are not in relationships. So I agree. Where I was focused is what is the dynamic that's causing this population to falter, stall, not make the progression. And then, of course, there are those downstream consequences. It's not excusing it. And fundamentally, understanding does not free the individual from the responsibility to resolve it. That's the nature of psychotherapy. We can come in and gain insight. We can tie a current experience, a current set of symptoms to a past set of symptoms. We can say, that's unfortunate. You should not have been tasked with that, but you were. And it is still your job to resolve it, to find a way to live the best life you can. So I'm in agreement with that comment. It also is the downstream of what our intent was with that episode.
Now that we're on this episode, maybe let's do a shift towards this episode. 65% of this population is not in relationships. And this is a downstream effect of these behaviors. We know that these are bad behaviors. We know that there's a lot of personal responsibility that goes to that. The fact that the political parties are playing a role in driving a lot of these behaviors. Can we step back now and say, okay, how does this next generation, this up and coming generation, start to change so that they're not getting drawn into the same thing? For those who are heading in that direction, how do they start to make a change? Knowing that, well, there's not a mythic, poetic quest. It isn't probably going to be just as simple as wishing that we just created one. We can all sit around and hope that there's a big crisis that America goes through. We have a great war, but we probably don't want that to happen. So what is the thing that next generation can do if we're thinking about it at that level?
Do you guys think that there's still that sort of mindset for the younger generation, though? I think if you're talking about societal views and what it means to be man versus a woman, what it means to be strong versus included, I think those definitions definitely change given a few years at a time. And what one generation feels, like how you guys feel versus how I feel versus how my kids feel, like the generation in between, I think it's going to be very different. So I don't know if that's necessarily an ongoing thing. I think it definitely impacts a certain subgroup, but the following subgroup may not be quite as bad. I don't know. Like, I think kids right now, think of school age kids currently. I don't know if what is really the emphasis, and maybe it's a state thing. Different states have very different viewpoints on the education system and what's being put out in schools. But what is actually being emphasized in terms of, hey, boys, you should be like this, and girls, you should be like this? I think it's different for consecutive generations.
I guess toward that end, reality is that until this generation transitions into adolescence and moving toward adulthood, it's hard to say because I'm going to borrow one of Keith's analogies. They have to swim in the pool that they have at that time. And that pool is going to be the socioeconomic, cultural factors that are salient at that time. And my hope, and this might not be enough time, but my hope is that we transition through this void, this limbo place in which we don't necessarily understand what the future is going to be. I go back to 1970. Folks who were facing this had a reasonable expectation that their future was going to be very similar to the structure that their parents' experience had been. Right now, with technology and the social changes that we're experiencing, they can't do that. So it's hard to say what the next generation does or what they're going to face.
I'm talking about the pool they're swimming in today. Okay, we don't know, but we have a population, 18 to 28, Caucasian, Hispanic males that are sliding in this direction. It's not happening to African American males.
No, it is. I have dug into this since this last episode because I felt like I was underprepared there. There is a subtle but still noticeable and significant shift. And what I was really interested in is why white males, to a lesser degree Hispanic males, and to a lesser degree African American males, but we are seeing the shift across the board. It's just the significance or the numbers are different. Mostly young white males, and then Hispanic males, and then African American males, because it's happening across the board. And what I'm coming up with, and this is my theory, is that culturally and historically, this is tied to how bound to the Democratic Party that these subsets of the population were. So Hispanics have historically voted Democrat, but not in the numbers other subgroups have. So they are less bound to the Democratic Party, so they're making a little greater shift. White males, historically, it's been a 50-50 split among Caucasian portion of our population. So it wasn't that much of a struggle for them to make the shift. So we're seeing the shift bigger, more expansively among whites, but it is happening in Hispanics, and it's also happening in African Americans. However, they have been historically so tightly bound to the Democratic Party that within their subculture, within their families, it is such the norm that their shift hasn't been as big. But one can predict on this trajectory, if nothing else changes, it will happen for all groups. This is all young men. The only difference is college education and how tightly bound their subculture is to the Democratic Party historically. So it is bigger than just young white males.
I mean, feeling not being heard or not belonging, that's a very universal feeling, very universal drive that can be capitalized upon. And as you guys mentioned, that's something that any group can really, doesn't have to be a political party, it could be any group that can capitalize on those feelings to drive those populations to feel like, hey, we hear you, you can belong with us, and this is what we can do because you guys are special and we hear you. And I think that can happen at any time, anywhere. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to change. Now, if we're talking about the political parties, I think it'd definitely be wise for both sides to pay attention to who's being left out. And it's very easy to cater to extremes, and it's extremely easy to cater to the loud voices and the people who have money or time to bring influence, but that doesn't necessarily represent the most. And so if you miss that, I think that's where whatever party's missing that is going to find itself to be on the losing side potentially. But I don't think these feelings and drives are going to go away.
This is not necessarily about Republican versus Democrat at this point. We're talking about the drive towards this ultramasculine perspective. That's really what I'm interested in. If somebody wants to vote Republican, vote Republican. If somebody wants to vote Democrat, vote Democrat. I'm really more interested in people shifting towards this desire for this perspective of men are that much more important, that much better than women. Strong men, ooh, here, blah, blah, blah. I can lift this much, therefore that makes me better. I have a penis. Look at me. That's what I'm talking about.
Do you?
Make the assumption, yes.
But you see, that's the issue, because it's not that they are conservative, that they're going in this direction.
No.
They are progressive. They are moderates that are voting in that way. What they're voting for is the ultra masculine bro culture.
Absolutely.
David, I mean, that's part of it, but I think you're still not including the fact that there's definitely a lot of female voters who also are okay with some of that culture. And where does that come from? That's a big population that says at a certain point, hey, I'm okay with this. And I'm
Yeah,
okay with the perception of this. We can't miss that either. It's not just the guys.
true. It's just the nature of that episode was very much focused to talk about.
Just the guys. Yeah.
We're talking about
Unfortunately, we were very much and still are a sausage party.
we are,
We
we
were
are.
lacking the necessary equipment to probably have a credible conversation on the female perspective. And that's why we haven't really delved too deep into that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully in the future, we will bring somebody in there that can help us out that way.
Absolutely.
Right now, we don't want to ignore it, but let's be honest, whatever we say is just mansplaining.
There's a quote that I've always loved for our line of work as psychiatrists. It's by a Roman poet named Terence. He said, "I am human. Nothing human is alien to me." And by that, he meant that while we're all individual and we all have unique experiences, the band of human experience and human emotion is narrow enough that any of us, if we put some energy and some effort into it, can imagine the experience of other people and we can empathize. Except when you can't. That there is between two people, and this is a Rainier Rilke, a German poet who wrote in French. But between two people, there is a void that cannot be crossed. And not to get too dark, fundamentally, we're born alone. We experience life in our own heads alone, and we die alone. And no one can ever really cross that void that is our conscious that lives inside of us, particularly when it comes to issues about the sacred feminine. We don't have experience. And in order to do it justice, because there's several topics I'd love to talk about. You kind of alluded to the trad wife, traditional wife movement that was popular on TikTok for a bit, maybe still is, I don't know. I'd love to talk about girl boss burnout, that these roles and responsibilities that are being transitioned on women, in one way, it's this advance. They are doing all the things that they always should have been able to do, but they're not being supported in the right way to some of the other responsibilities. There's a lot that we do have that I'd love to deal with, but we need a feminine voice in order to do justice to that. It would be disingenuous and parody if we tried to do it alone.
And to be honest, I mean, anything we talk about, we can only give our own perspective. I couldn't possibly speak for every super awesome person out there. I can only speak from my
Super
own
awesome.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the points you're raising, David, though, is the need to want to be special, the need to feel like there is something that's important about you. And that happens when there are some things missing. If you don't have the connections, if you don't have the self-confidence to say, hey, I have something to look forward to, I know I have a set future. Because when you don't have that, and the future is very uncertain, and you can't do what your dad did, you have no idea what kind of job you're going to get. And if you don't have a job, and that equates in your mind with being important and being able to, whether it's the family man, quote unquote, or the responsible one or the head of the household, and you can't do that, then that brings up those feelings of inferiority. So what do you turn to? You have to turn to something. And if that something is, this is what makes me important, and this is a baseline that I have, and now it's being attacked, that's where you do get those insecurities and actions and the misbehaviors and the conflict. If you are able to protect against that somehow, by saying, well, these are the kind of jobs and you will do well, and these are the kind of relationships that will help foster more resilient people. That as a society, I think that's really what would help protect against this. But that's easier said than done.
I think you went down a great path there. I think you called it out perfectly. This population that is feeling like they've lost the thing that has made them special, primarily being male. That is a side effect of society changing. It does not necessarily matter anymore whether you are man or woman in a lot of workplaces. If you can get an education, you can go out and do most jobs.
There's also a fear, David, that being a heterosexual white Caucasian male, the fear that being in that category may now be a disadvantage because there's more of an emphasis on either diversity or something different. And I think once you start getting into that line of thinking, it becomes an even bigger problem, even bigger insecurity and a drive to find something that keeps you important, to be feeling important at least.
I think you're right. It does. If things start to even out to where the playing field is starting to get level and the higher paying jobs do not have the physical requirement that they used to have, the applicants for it start to go up significantly. Once you start to bring in this other piece, a push to diversify the workforce, you get equality where the workforce just looks like the population. What does that do? Well, it means that you are now competing against people that you weren't competing against before. And that is a scary premise when before you were only competing against way fewer people. And so competition goes up, things get a lot more difficult. In order to set yourself apart, you do have to be a lot more special, and it does become more difficult.
Do you suspect it might be a little bit of the, and I'm speaking as a man, of the premise that you have to be more in order to compete for the same job? Traditionally, I hear from the female perspective that you do have to be for the similar job. You need to stand out as a female, especially in a traditionally male environment, to be considered good at what you do. It's not fair. It's not the same skill set. You must be better to get the same job. And I think if the perception is that in a normal workplace where you thought you had it easy and it was a traditional job that you could do, now you don't stick out anymore. You are just average and you must be better, or you're losing opportunities to somebody else because they have different qualifications that have nothing to do with the job potentially that might make it more attractive. Those fears can lead into that.
You're absolutely right. But the shift is the desirable jobs just don't have those qualifications. If a high paying job is to be a computer programmer, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, what physical attributes you have. If you can code, you can get the job. What matters is how good are you at coding? That's it. Nobody gives a shit how much that person can bench. They don't care how fast that person is. They don't care what color their skin is. They don't care what country they come from. What they care about is, can that person code and how well can they do it? In the past, if a high paying job was how physically strong are you? Construction work. That did matter. That was a completely different thing. Were you in the area? Could you make it there? Did you have transportation? Society has shifted in such a grand way. It has created competition in areas where this population has not had to compete. And that is a scary premise.
We're delving into the social science on this, and let me pull us back to the psychodynamics of it for this population. Before I do that, I have one more apology that as I listened to it, where I actually found myself cringing about myself, which is a moderately common phenomenon for me. So it happens. Yeah, I'm cringy at times. We were focused on male heterosexuals, 18 to 20.
28.
And it wasn't designed for this. And this is another very similar to, I guess, how it would be disingenuous for us to speak toward the female perspective. It's disingenuous for us to speak toward the gay perspective. And I did find myself talking about how historically becoming a man was sort of contingent upon being in a relationship with a woman, building a family, having children. And that is a very traditional mythic story for the path to manhood. It does leave out a lot of people though. And I'm not ignorant to that. I'm not missing that point that in our tens of listeners, if you are gay, I left you out. I do apologize for that, but it is a different dynamic. I can't speak toward it, though, nor can we, because we would need a guest who has that perspective to add. So I'm going to add that. But coming back now, I'm going to double down on what I just apologized about. So Jung, one of the...
Okay.
Why wouldn't I double down?
There you go. Yeah, let's make it worse.
I've apologized, but now I'm going to do it again. So I guess an apology doesn't count if you don't learn your lesson.
I mean, you did say it, but
is there a better way to present it? Because can you present this better than this is how I feel?
Yeah. I feel like there was a joke built into there and I just couldn't come up with it. It's the Testo Rage Max. The more I drink this bourbon bull sweat flavor, the more I fear my kidneys are not working. At any rate, before we bring it to market, we might have to go back to the drawing board.
Next time, heifer sweat.
Yeah, exactly. Need a little estrogen. Tastes like victory and whatever the bull was doing just prior. One of the reasons I really enjoy Jung is that I think he gets at some of the questions that I guess are bordering into the mystic. And I enjoy that. There is an element of being human that is very mechanical. And then there's an element of being human that is a little mystical, a little magical. It's ephemeral. We can't put our fingers on it. So we've talked in prior episodes about archetypes and we've talked about the shadow. There was one other element that featured prominently in his way of approaching psychotherapy. And that was the animus and the anima, so the male and the female. And he did believe that to be a unified individual, you had to come to grips with both sides of yourself. So being a man, being manly, there is an element of the feminine that has to be incorporated into this, and vice versa.
Is this like the Tobias Funke, the man inside me?
I think he's talking more about the yin versus the yang. It's the circle.
Exactly. That's the image I want everyone to imagine right now, is a yin and yang. So the yin and yang are those comma-shaped things that fill the circle, and then inside of each is a dot of the other. So for an individual, that is critical. For a relationship, and this was the cool thing about Jung, is his theories, his approach to psychology were on the individual, the couple, the relational, the family, the tribe, the community, and then the universe. It expanded out, and he felt like they were applicable at each level. One of the things that is missing, that transition to manhood right now, is a connection to the feminine. There is a criticality to the feminine for someone to successfully transition. You can't just be a dominant male. It's not enough to just beat everyone around you with a stick. That's not going to make the transition. You are not going to feel good about that transition. You do have to incorporate the feminine. Now, I'm not going to label characteristics as masculine or feminine. We all can do that in our own heads. I realize if I try to label them, I'm going to get so much blowback, and I don't even want to.
A third episode it will be.
Anyone who listens to this immediately has a set of qualities that they might attribute to masculine and a set of qualities that they might attribute to the feminine. And then they can think of folks who blend them beautifully. They can blend them perfectly, and they can be both. And I'm thinking of people in my life who are feminine, but they have that core attributes that one might call masculine, but they are like the perfect example of femininity in my mind. And vice versa with masculinity. There has to be an element of empathy and caring, etc. And that's what's missing in this aesthetic that's being provided currently by the Republican Party. But as you stated earlier, that's not going to be constant. Promises are being made. Nothing's changing that's actually going to allow those promises to come to fruition. And these folks are going to become dissatisfied with that party and move on to the next, which we should do an episode on propaganda, actually, that they get you in your feels, as my kids would say. How you emotionally respond becomes your reality.
I mean, it builds off projection.
Absolutely.
Weirdly enough, everything we talk about builds off of everything we talk about. Crazy.
Because we're that smart. We are building.
No, we're just that lucky.
No, it's that simple.
Just
is
human,
really
yeah,
it.
that's it. Yeah, human nature is human nature. And when I think of the perfect blend of masculine and feminine, I think Will Ferrell is Janet Reno.
Absolutely. That a big concur. In fact, we should end the episode with
I thought we were going to talk about Mrs. Doubtfire.
Absolutely. Well, those characters do resonate with us. I think it's reasonable to look into pop culture, into movies, etc., because they are a reflection of the zeitgeist. And some of the most popular characters are those ones. I mean, think about it. Think about most, we'll say, action hero types, that they are strong, silent, reasonably measured who they select to inflict violence on. But boy, when they decide to inflict violence, it is final, overwhelming. But we always have to show their caring side, that they'll take care of an orphan, whatever. They do something caring and nurturing to just give the character some complexity. But that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that you can't be all one thing. You cannot be all masculine. All masculine is a parody, is a joke. That's the thing I wanted to avoid us making jokes about. Even more, the area for jokes are those who try to pretend to be that. So I'm going to go back to the great
Case in
work.
point for pop culture, the movie Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's a great flick.
Where,
I don't know. I've seen it.
What?
He becomes
They get him
experimentally pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great movie.
okay. Maybe
And
I'll watch
they
it
do
later.
put him in drag, yeah.
Yeah, I'll watch it later. I'm going to draw on the great
Kindergarten
work.
Cop.
Well, it's not a tumor. I am going to draw on the great work of art and social commentary that was Roadhouse. So everyone, not the remake. The remake's just bullshit and nonsense. Don't go that route. Jake Gyllenhaal, no. This is Patrick Swayze at his absolute best. That, interestingly, go back to, I don't know what year that was, 88 maybe, 89?
89, yeah.
89? I love how you knew that right off the top of your head.
He didn't even look that up.
I feel like there's a story. So please.
It was 89. It was 89. How did you do that, Emmett?
Occasionally some dates stick, all right?
Oh, right. I can remember the moment it came out. I saw the poster and I thought, I have to see this. Yeah, but that character was a very prototypical portrayal of manliness, that he was tough, but he was calm and he was measured. But once he chose to inflict violence, it was overwhelming. And he had this kind of backstory in which he was a philosophy major. You know what a bachelor's degree in philosophy gets you?
Podcast where you drink bourbon.
A student.
Well,
and talk about psychology.
A BA in philosophy plus $350 will get you a coffee at Starbucks. So,
well, we lost all of our philosophy majors.
Next week, we'll apologize to the philosophy majors.
But Rob, to be fair, you do quote a lot of philosophy. So,
I do.
It's coming in useful.
I do.
Rob had a minor in philosophy. Come on. He obviously had pre-med major.
Yeah. Bottom line, these images of masculinity do come out in movies and they do change over time.
As you've mentioned before, Rob, the archetypal imagery there, it is very alluring. So it'll be prototypical, no nonsense, perfectly fine. But if you mess with me, you're going to get it. That mentality is very fascinating for me personally as well. Those are the kind of movies that really make an impact. You have this ability to really harmonize that. You can imagine yourself, or if nothing else, it's a fantasy. This is what a man is like, at least in this scenario. Extend that out to the Liam Neeson films or Jason Statham films, where it's very, very similar, where if they need to take care of business, they will take care of business definitively.
I gave away Roadhouse largely because I was a kid at that time. I was an adolescent at that time, contrary to David's claims. So I was an adolescent then, and in the late 80s in particular, there was a string of films that in their own way attempted to portray this path to manliness. Now I look back on them and I can laugh because, watch Roadhouse. Listen to this and then watch Roadhouse. It's kind of ridiculous. There's some magic place in this world that's untouched by law and order or anything outside of like the local sheriff. It's ridiculous. All of it, start to finish, it's ridiculous. These are the images that honestly did help guide me for better or for worse, and on life goes. But right now, what are the images that are guiding our young men?
I think it's confusing out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very confusing. I think that's part of the problem. What the experiences of the previous generations are not what the newer generations are experiencing or are seeing as options for them. And that's what causes some of that confusion and the desire to actually become part of something that they feel like they belong.
Hey, it's Rob from Shrink the Nation. As my friend David so eloquently states at the beginning of the show, we are clinicians, but we're not your clinician. We love to joke around and dive into the tough topics, but there's something really important we need to say. If you're struggling with your mental health or facing substance use issues, we want you to know you're not alone. We have dedicated our professional careers to mental health, and we care deeply about it. It's okay to ask for help. Reaching out to a professional in your area could be the first step toward feeling better. Don't wait. There's support out there, and it works. Please take that first step. We want you to be well. Now let's get back to the show. Oh, and don't tell David I said he was eloquent. He'll be insufferable.
We started talking about how AI could potentially be used beneficially to help improve kids' education. I think there's something there that is really rocking this 18 to 28-year-old range. I'm not blaming AI for this. I actually see AI as potentially being a route out for the next generation. If you have this group that is growing up at a time where Society is changing so much. The market is much more saturated. The competition is much, much greater as far as what your attributes need to be to get certain jobs. We go back to school, and what is it that is happening in school? What's really driving teenage boys, young boys to want to be successful in school? Is it being smart? Is it being manly, athletic? What's the thing that's pushing them at that time? Who's ultimately having the most success in high school, most success into college and higher levels of education?
I think there's two questions there, David. One is who is actually consciously saying, this is what I need to do to be successful versus this is what should make me successful, and then being caught flat footed when they're done with school and realize the world isn't what I thought it was going to be, or the skills that I thought would make me successful. Being the football captain and not making it to the pros, now what do I do? This
Right.
was not as helpful to me, as I thought it would be. And then you're stuck. And then you have to figure something out.
And there's another piece to that too, is when you're going through the educational path that most kids take, not all, but most, you go to public school, you're all getting the same curriculum, which is kind of everything. Well, not everyone's good at everything. That really punches you in the gut when you really struggle to be good at particular things. And so you might be great at math, but you really don't like social studies. You really don't like English. And so you think, I'm not good at this. You start to lose that drive to want to go to that next level of education. But maybe you are really good at certain sports, but you're not great. You're not going to be Michael Jordan. You're not going to end up playing basketball professionally. You're not going to play in the NFL. Does that make sense to anybody?
I think it's so loaded, though. The expectations on you, assuming you have family members, parents who are really on top, the expectations of you must be good at everything, or, well, that's okay. That doesn't matter anyway because you're good at this. You're going to be my basketball star. I think that does play a role. For most kids, I don't know if they would necessarily care if they're not that good at social studies. This class is boring and I am better at this. This is what I enjoy. And maybe does that help your future? May play into your thinking, but a lot of times it won't because it's school and who cares?
But if we're looking at the population, and it's the high school graduates, non-college educated, that are swinging more towards this ultra masculine perspective. So the college educated are not doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who is graduating high school but not going to college? And that's
you're
what I'm
looking
saying.
at part-time jobs, you're looking at trade schools, right, or just your handwork, and you're looking at probably people, not necessarily all, but many not making as much money as some of your more educated people. And when you're concerned about the monetary impact of policy that really does drive some of those decisions on, am I paying more taxes or less taxes? Is my job going to still be there? Is someone else going to come take my job? I think those are the kind of things that do drive some of those policy switches for people. And if you don't feel safe, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you don't feel safe, like your job is going to be there.
These are progressive people. These are moderate people. These are conservative. Doesn't matter. They're not college educated. These are the males that are swinging this direction. What I'm getting at is we have this odd intersection of society has shifted so much in the last couple of decades where you have so much more focus on these jobs that do not require special physical skill sets. But you also haven't had any change in the way that we're educating younger people. And so the people that otherwise would have probably still had decent jobs anyway are finding themselves kind of SOL when they're getting out of that and they're coming into their own. They're not having a way to find that agency when they're getting into that early adulthood. That agency is no longer there. I can't help them. But if I go backwards and I think about the younger generations and I think about what could be done different now, there are a lot of people who probably, I don't know, but probably do feel quite stunted by their lack of success in certain areas that are really just trying to be force-fed in a classroom with 30 or more children, a certain way of learning a particular subject, when that's not how everybody learns. When you have something as cool as what Rob's favorite person, Sam Altman, has built.
Yeah. We love you, Sam. Love you.
When you have the ability, just looking off into wonderment like you are.
Talk about a manly man.
When you have the ability to come up with a way to teach each individual kid to their style so that they can be successful in all the different areas, so that they don't feel so incredibly lost when they're going through school.
Wouldn't you say that focusing on a little bit of everything also leads to a recipe for feeling lost? Because if you can pick and choose and say, hey, this is what works for me and I feel good with it, maybe this is a path for me. And I know I can do this because the other stuff I don't care about or I'm not as good at, that might lead to some more success as well. But if there's way too many options and you're learning a little bit of everything, I don't know if that, I mean, maybe.
But we already do that. What do you mean?
So I'm going to disagree totally with both of you guys. I hear what you're saying. I feel like you're both full of shit. No. No. What I guess you make a valid point. My observations of my kids in school is not necessarily that the educational system has not changed dramatically since I was there. It has become less integrated and less cohesive than when I was there. That it was a community when I was in school, and it no longer is. They go in 10 different directions with all these special programs. Half of them, once they get to high school, are off doing college programs. And honestly, they're not college level work. They're dumbed down, quote unquote, college level work. And it's a moneymaker. It built in structure for these colleges to make money because the state is paying for these college, quote unquote, level courses, but they're not. At any rate, it's disintegrated, that there used to be a cohesiveness to it. However, I guess this argument about whether we tailor to specifics and identify what children's strengths are, I don't know. And maybe I'm Pollyannish on this, but I feel like the goal of primary school, high school is a reasonably well-rounded education, and then you pursue it from there. But ultimately, there's a good percentage of folks who are being still successful. I don't know if it's the academic side of it, the educational side of it. I don't know if there's a huge change. I think young people have often struggled in academics anyway. There was just a route. And I'm going to go back to what Keith had said last time and what Keith was talking about, which was a beautiful point from a very smart man and a very manly man, by the way. Beautiful beard, really solid jawline. I mean, just striking.
You know, that's the cutout that's behind Keith.
It's that corn.
That's
corn
the Superman
guy.
cutout standing behind Keith.
No.
Keith's the guy in front of it.
Keith. I thought it was Keith.
Yeah.
Shoot. I take it back.
He's not
terribly manly. At any rate, that power is earning potential in this world. And you do often see like young men who have very limited earning potential they're the ones drinking the Testo Rage Max. Everyone buy it where you buy your antibiotic steroids. And then as they transition, they've developed earning potential. That becomes power and in many ways manliness, I guess. I still think there is something afoot that is aside from education. It is about pathways to manhood. I can't step away from it. I hear what you're saying. You're thinking like, how do we solve this? How do we do it better?
It's not we. We can't solve it. You and I and Amit and Keith, we can't solve it.
You're not manly enough.
I
can solve this.
The thing is, I'm doing fine. I don't need to drink the Testo Rage Max.
I do.
And start rage tweeting.
4 cans a day, but people. And
watching tons of UFC and run around throwing everybody into a headlock whenever I get a chance. I did all that in my 20s. I got drunk on the ship. I did all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're through that phase, right?
Right. And outside the realm of UCMJ punishment to admit that you were drunk on the ship.
I didn't get drunk on the ship. I got drunk, then I got on the ship.
Oh, I got it.
When you live on the ship, you got to come back to the ship. That's
for the audience, ship living is very similar to prison living. Toilet wine is a thing. A little bit of bread, some fruit, you got wine.
After a few days.
Yeah. It doesn't even take that long. It's amazing.
When have you ever lived on a ship?
But I have been to prison, so.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. There goes all your licensure.
And security clearances.
But for those who are listening, for those who are
tens of listeners
are stupidly listening to us, thinking that maybe, just maybe, these guys can offer up even the slightest tidbit of wisdom on what can be done. What can be done? What is it? How to get through to somebody how to change the path, even if it's just getting in the way of this not happening to my youngest. So
Yeah.
I've got the 20-year-old and he is really getting into this stuff and it's really scaring the shit out of me. I don't want my 13-year-old doing this.
Drinking Testo Max?
Yeah,
Come
I
on.
don't want that happening. What can be done differently? All I got.
All you got? What do you got?
No. Well, you tell me.
So-
We're talking about past. You're gonna take him out to the woods and have him pierce his scrotum with something and make him kill a elk with a knife and
Secret rites and rituals that occur in the forest with my kids, I'm not going to reveal because then they'd know. It's so much better when the unknown know. So the path through this forest is contingent upon the forest. When I was thinking about talking about this episode to begin with, it's the forest right now that I'm fascinated about. There's a conflux of multiple things happening at once that is stifling this male development in a healthy way. They're forging the path in a way that is unhealthy, and it's not conducive to their well-being. It's not conducive to them developing relationships. Clearly, 65% are not in a relationship. So whatever they're doing, it ain't working. And it's being encouraged politically in order to garner votes. But they're going to fail. That political party will fail them. Historically, the Democrats actually were able to grab this same population because it was unionized jobs. So they were on that side and they grabbed that population. So there's a time where working class individuals absolutely overwhelmingly voted Democrat. It's just shifted. This isn't necessarily something that the Republicans are wrong about. It's just the aesthetic that they have used. Again, we should talk about propaganda, but a propaganda tool to grab the feelings of this population, and they've been successful with it. So how do we get through? I don't know if it's so much the path as we have to think about the forest that we're planting.
To be clear, do not care about who they're voting for. I don't give a shit. What I care about is the fact that they're going down these paths. The behavior is unhealthy. The behavior is bad. The behavior is resulting in them having a 60+% non-relationship rate, which means that a whole bunch of people don't want to fuck them. Probably for good reason, because they have really bad
Body odor
behaviors. You can't really blame them, but they don't see it. That drives them even further down the rabbit hole. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It does. What were you going to say there?
I was just going to say, you have that, but at the same time, the self-perception of being important and being better than others. You combine that with not being validated by relationship or something else or society that doesn't quite reflect back their own sense of specialness, and that causes even more conflict than where we do. And that's where you start getting lost.
Yeah. Speaking of coming full circle, grandiosity. That
we did it, guys.
Right,
all right.
Yeah.
Podcast over.
Well, right back to grandiosity.
It's been a lot of fun, everybody.
Yeah. As a defense, not excusing bad behavior, but
it sounds like you're about to excuse bad behavior.
But I am going to excuse bad behavior. No, bad behavior is bad behavior. But my point is that blaming or finding the ways to be angry at this population is missing a bit of the point, that there's always going to be a group of our population that will be swayed and are prone to bad behavior if the environment is right. As much as we can dismiss or be frustrated with the bad behavior, if we don't do something for this significant proportion of our population, it affects us. It affects our nation. Every single citizen is the health of our nation. You know, as much as I can say, look, some of their behaviors are so distasteful for me and so ridiculous and funny, and I want to make fun of it, but it's also such a big percentage of the population that it will come back to haunt us if we do not find a way to make contact with these people and help them navigate this. Let's look for what societal factors we can have power over.
So Rob, I'll just add on something to that, just a wrinkle in that. You're talking about bad behaviors and societal factors. So there's a film, a documentary that's called I'm Just Here for the Riot. Stanley Cup 2011 documentary regarding riots in Vancouver after the Stanley Cup Finals, where they lost to the Bruins, I believe. And the documentary is all about how in a crowd, everything is okay. The mob mentality. Looting, destroying, doing things to their own city after this event, young men and women. And the mentality is, we're all here, everybody's okay with this, it's okay to continue this bad behavior. You can translate that into smaller sections as well, because if you're in a group where you're kind of all feeling left out and you are sort of making your own subgroup, then whatever you do, whatever you say is okay because everybody agrees with it. You become your own microcosm where societal ethics don't necessarily matter. It is an interesting mindset where if you're around enough people who feel that these behaviors are okay for whatever reason, whatever the exception is, then it's okay. And then you can act in whatever way you want and feel like you're justified. This is not a big deal.
Which probably should bring us to prescriptions. And I'm struggling, but I'm going to defer to you guys. Any suggestions on how to approach this? How, as a society, on a societal level, how do we get at these individuals?
I feel like any prescriptions would have to be geared towards the parents, possibly.
We've established we're the worst generation of parents ever.
No, we are.
We're bad.
Because we've overseen it. It's not necessarily intentional or that we were the cause. We were just there. We were the parents for this generation. Our parenting style certainly contributed to a lot of this stuff, but at the same time, there was just a confluence of bad situations and maybe even great situations that happened all at once that kind of led to this stuff. A lot of advancement of technology, societal shift. Does it mean that the parents are ultimately responsible for every 28-year-old man out there who has bad behavior? Oh,
Just their mom.
is it mom's job to go in there and fix it? No. If we're being honest, if we're going to tailor prescriptions towards the parents, I say tailor the prescriptions towards the parents of the kids that are much younger and trying to not have this happen to the next generation by emphasizing getting the best education possible, emphasizing that I love you, you are special, but you're not special to everybody.
And you're not me.
Yeah, you're not me. You are not going to live my life, nor should you. You will need to forge your own path, but I will do my best to be there. Problem is, not everybody has parents.
Yeah, that's true.
So not everybody's going to have that. Now, as far as whose responsibility is this to not have this bad behavior, it's on the person with the bad behavior. That's who needs to change the damn behavior. It's not everybody else's problem that the 18 to 28-year-old males have bad behavior. Society is suffering, but it's not society's responsibility to fix it. Society will suffer if it doesn't change. There are probably things that society could do to improve it, but it's not society's responsibility to fix a bunch of people with bad behavior. It is their responsibility. Swap testosterone made me do it with I chose that and I can choose better. Try that. Try taking responsibility for your own actions and understanding that if you don't feel like you are important, perhaps it's something that you're doing. Perhaps there's something more that you could be doing with your life. If you feel like you aren't educated enough to get a job, go back to school. It's not somebody else's fault that they worked their ass off to get a job. Maybe they got the job because they got the education. It just really sucks sometimes when you don't get a job, but it doesn't mean the world is out to get you. As far as what the political parties could do, I mean, they're not going to. This is my silly prescription. They could stop the bullshit. They could stop catering to this shit. The Democrats could start treating adults like adults, and they could stop treating everybody who disagrees with them, even 1%, like they're the worst fucking people on the planet. You agree with me on 99% of the things I say, but you disagree with this one thing, you're gone. And the Republicans could stop catering to this garbage, saying, we want you to be this way. This is perfect. We love that you are running around being jerks to everybody around you. This is great. Keep it up. We love that. That's my prescription. Grow up, everybody.
After last episode, the next morning, the headline that I came across was that there is a UFC fight scheduled for the White House lawn. I am not kidding.
There you go.
Which
Why didn't you lead with that,
highlights-
Rob? That could have been the opening line of the episode.
Yeah. Well, it's the death of shame. I think the death of shame is playing into this across the board.
Absolutely.
Don't have reasonable shame about your behavior. And in fact, instead of shame, you make it everyone else's problem. problem. And I'd really like to see people stop going into public in pajama pants and slippers. So let's fix that. Come on. All right, my prescriptions. My number one prescription is be all you can be, join the army. If you need purpose, by God, we'll give you purpose. We'll give you purpose. If you need structure, by God, we're going to give you that too. You can come in, you can be an army of one. Personally, I prefer to be an army of many. If I'm going to war, I want to be an army of many. Army of one seems missing the point, but you can be that. You can be all you can be. You can do a lot of things in the army, and it's certainly a path. It's a structure, and it's an opportunity if you lack opportunities. So that's my primary.
If you join the Air Force,
prescription.
You can just sit back and let the missiles do the work.
Yeah, well, that's true. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, you can join the Air Force too, but join the military. We'll just broaden it out. That's one. I do think that there is a demand here. I mean, there's always personal responsibility that is built into choice and living a good life and feeling good about your life is personal responsibility. I do feel like we're at a point where societal changes to technological changes have come at such a pace that parents are at a loss to guide their children, to give future advice. And there is some policy issues that need to happen in order to provide this pathway to a future-proof job in the context of AI and what is AI going to be like and how is that going to affect the job opportunity. I swear in 10 years, if we have this same conversation again, which would be kind of magical if we did, I have a feeling that it's going to be the college educated people who are losing their minds because it's so much harder to get entry-level positions because AI is doing it. So I think we do need some policy decisions and some societal change that is going to provide a future-proof pathway for our kids to achieve. And whether that's doubling down on trade schools, which I think are underemphasized and utilized, or something else. But I think that's something we have to think about as a society. And I do absolutely think, back to the death of shame, the political parties need to start being shamed for some of their behaviors that are totally instrumental, not designed for long-term benefit, purely designed to get the voting advantage in the short term. It ain't working.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask all of our listeners to drink Testo Rage Max, available wherever you buy your fine energy drinks and your steroids. Multiple flavors to include lavender and mango when your inner warrior needs a hug.
And watch Roadhouse.
And watch Roadhouse. Absolutely.
And you get a kickback for each one that you drink. So cheers.
Watch your kidney function, folks. Just watch your kidney function.
I would just say for the parents, certainly, I think, Rob, you alluded to this. We talked about this a few episodes ago. Your experience is not going to be what your kid's experience is going to be like. Your opportunities are not what they're going to have. So just keep that in mind. So what your children are doing, don't set them up for that failure of trying to do exactly what you're doing unless you're very positive that that is a very stable industry. And there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's so many things that we don't know, that I don't know, that my kids will be able to do 10 years from now. Keep that open. Then what they're doing, what their hobbies are, they may be able to just make a lot more money than you do by just sitting there in front of their computer. That might be it. Be open-minded with that. And then check out I'm Only Here for the Riot documentary. It will definitely give you some interesting perspective on the human mentality. And interestingly, tying it into our theme of technology, the documentary also starts talking about how the advent of the iPhones, widespread internet, was used to figure out who were the worst offenders of those riots so they could be tracked down. Because up until then, there was a very anonymous feeling of no one's going to know who I am. I'm protected. So it's a very interesting documentary. And
I'm
then,
just here for the riot. Is that
I'm
what
just
the
here for
name
the
was?
riot. Yep.
I'll watch
And
it.
then speaking of AI, let me get you a second one in there, is What Could Go Wrong? It's an Audible audiobook regarding an esteemed screenwriter, Contagion, the movie, talking about his journey to use AI to recreate a script for and to pitch a script for a sequel to Contagion. Very fascinating and very impressive, the way that he utilizes probably the more expensive versions of AI out there to develop this. It's very interesting. So that's what I have to say for today.
And for Larry on Facebook, if what he says is true, and 97% of people who go to see shrinks are Democrats, maybe they should even that out and 50-50. That's what I'm thinking, because it might help to
Well,
get a little bit more bipartisan. 97% of people who see shrinks are Democrats, per Larry. I'm not sure where he gets his stats.
Well, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics, as Mark Twain said.
I don't know.
88% of all statistics quoted were made up within the 15 seconds prior to being stated.
On the spot. I don't know. Larry seemed
Anyway.
pretty confident.
All right, everyone, go out, be manly, make your way to a recruiting office.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for sticking in with us. If you made it this far, smash that subscribe, reach out to our socials, hit us up, socials@shrinkthenation.com.
Absolutely. Visit our website, shrinkthenation.com. Join our newsletter. Once we hit critical mass, we'll be sending out a weekly. I promise we will only send out one per week. We're not going to spam you, but go to our website, join the newsletter, and by the time this posts, there should also be a section where you can send in your questions and your suggestions and even your complaints in an anonymous fashion. So please do that as well. Send us your questions, send us your ideas for future episodes, and we would love it. Absolutely love it.
Send us to your friends. If anybody needs a good hate listen, we're here for you. And if you have anything else,
I do feel like this episode is not complete until there's a plug for a distillery. David,
you want me to plug a distillery?
Just a random one. Throw it in there.
Just any distillery.
Distillery for an endorsement.
Well, we would still love to have a distillery send us bourbon to review.
Or an energy drink's fine too. We'll do that.
Well, energy drinks, yeah. We're still looking for Dunkin' Donuts to send us coffee and donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts?
I'm tired of paying for Dunkin' Donuts, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we'll plug all this stuff. Our tens of listeners would really appreciate our endorsement of your product. If you have anything else you'd like us to apologize for, please let us know and we'll do that.
That's another. Cue up the music,
that
my man.
music. Until next time, we're out.